since their only major post-Soviet disagreement by this point was about basing rights in Crimea, which fortunately would be sorted out pretty quickly and would never ever come up again. The third reason was that Britain was confident that Germany would eventually do something silly like invade the Soviet Union or do something that would pull the United States into the war. Britain was, well, suspicious of basically every other major power. Germany was a rising threat, Russia was eyeing up India and Central Asia, the USA was asserting itself across the Americas, and France was France. One day soon, I totally promise, any minute now guaranteed. But the main supporter of the Nigerian government was Britain, who, as their former colonial overlord, felt passionately about the well-being of the Nigerian state, and just kidding, it was oil. The Franco-Ottoman alliance, the Anglo-Portuguese alliance, the Triple Alliance, and not to mention the Swedish anyone who isn't Denmark alliance. Yugoslavian politicians, for example, placed the blame on the Russian ethnic majority, since they felt that it was the duty of the country's largest ethnic group to keep things together in the face of any threats. A theory that they themselves would put to the test not long afterwards. Whilst the level of taxation varied depending on trade, location and era, one thing was consistent: nobody liked paying them. Perhaps the most famous man to flee the city was Tsutomu Yamaguchi, who, after suffering serious burns, decided to seek safety in his hometown of Nagasaki. He survived both atomic bombings. Publicly, the image was one of calm solidarity with the United States. Behind the scenes, it was one of blind panic. Hang on, the Soviet Union had elections, but wasn't it a one-party state? Well, yes, but that didn't mean that you couldn't vote, and the USSR had many elections open to the wider Soviet public. Britain voted to leave the European Union. Now, we're going to avoid that argument like it's the plague, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. We know that Franz Joseph was its Kaiser, it liked to eat Balkan countries, and that it broke up after the First World War. And after rearranging their territories, had demanded that they take part in what's called the Continental System. The Continental System was basically the Don't Trade with Britain Club, otherwise known as the We Won World War II Club. The American people would accept absolutely nothing less than utter capitulation by Japan in response to its attack on Pearl Harbor. And Germany's regime was seen as so evil that any traces of it had to be eradicated. Whereas Italy was just, well, Italy. France supported the Igbo, mostly because of their deep concern for their well-being, and oh wait, no, it was also oil. When it comes to alliances in the late 19th century, Germany was fairly promiscuous. And the policy reason behind this, formulated by Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, was fairly simple. To hell with France. 2 hours after the blast, the Red Cross Hospital, the largest one to survive the blast, had over 10,000 people visit. It had a capacity of 600. An American, Lee Harvey Oswald, was arrested. What's that? He's a Marxist who used to live in the USSR? Oh boy. For most people, the fact that you could only pick from one Communist Party-approved candidate doesn't seem very democratic. And that's because it isn't. A concession was basically a street, and this, in its entirety, represents the peak of the Austro-Hungarian overseas expansion. So what happened the second time? The Balkans happened. And again, it was Bulgaria. However, the most obvious reason he invaded was simple. He thought he was going to win. I hope you enjoyed this episode and thank you for watching, and a special thanks to James Bisonet for sponsoring the channel.